it's a bit bright. I appear to have sorted it out. Hello, obviously it's me again. I haven't done a video in a good while, and I was a bit reluctant on doing a pretty bog standard form of YouTubing, which is reviewing an album. I didn't really have anything new to say on the matter of a particular record. But with this, I kind of thought I need to weigh in my opinion. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're a bit late to the game here, you know, this has been out for over a month. Well, I know. So, I'm reviewing Blackstar by David Bowie, if you hadn't already realised, which you probably had. Obviously, if you've not heard of David Bowie, then there's a wealth of material for you to peruse. He's certainly one of the greatest artists in music, and one of the most transformative as well. He really likes alter egos. As such, that's kind of bled into his music a little, with no one record sounding the same as another. And yeah, I've heard of him before this record was released, before anyone asks. I'm British, so all his albums just go to #1 really here. And he's looked on in the same light as the Beatles. He's pretty much sacrosanct in this country. I don't know about anywhere else, but certainly in the UK. But if you've never heard a record by him, I'd suggest starting with Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, probably. Or Aladdin Sane or Hunky Dory. Those are kind of considered to be his 3 best records by most people. Or Low, or Station to Station, or Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. So Blackstar is the 25th and final album by David Bowie. It was released 2 days before his death, on his birthday. I still can't get past the fact that he's gone. It was very strange. I woke up on that Monday morning and I got a message from my girlfriend saying David Bowie's dead. And I just kind of thought it was one of those stupid internet rumours, like, I don't know, David Guetta is dead, or any one of those ridiculous stories which floats around the interweb. But no, it was genuine. Generally, when an artist passes, I tend to feel very indifferent about it, but this really hit me hard because I've grown up with David Bowie throughout my childhood. My dad was an avid listener to his music. He would always be blaring Heroes on in the car. It was a bit hard to digest. I mean, when the new Bowie album was announced, I was over the moon and I was intrigued to hear it, and I was really ecstatic that he had gone back to releasing music, and I was hoping that there'd be more releases in the future. Yeah, the first track I heard was the epic title track, which was released a month or so prior to release. I don't think anyone realised just how artistically extraordinary that this work was, in the sense that he intended this to be released in tandem with his death, to turn his demise essentially into a piece of art. That's just one of the most neatly tied up ways to end a music career. And I don't think anyone has ever done that. There are people who have done great records before they die, but not anything which specifically refers to death. I mean, people will obviously talk about innuendo with Queen and Freddie Mercury and how he was slowly declining with his AIDS affliction. Even Mercury and Bowie collaborated together on Under Pressure. But I don't think it's ever been this explicit before, because I'm lost for words. This album's only 7 tracks. It's one of Bowie's shortest albums in terms of the number of tracks. Perhaps Station to Station is the only album which is shorter, because that has 6 tracks. I don't know if he's done fewer tracks than that on an album. But the album opens up with the title track, Blackstar, which at 10 minutes is an ambitious beginning to the album. You have this very interesting jazz drum beat, which is accompanied by these juttering synths that follow it shortly afterwards. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was the Scott Walker influence on this track, and many others on the record. He's previously proclaimed his love for Scott Walker, so it's not that surprising that there's similarities between the two. It's kind of inevitable that you're going to get some kind of comparison. Scott Walker started out in a kind of a similar capacity where he was a very popular music artist, and then he kind of started doing things which were a bit darker and more experimental and left field and just batshit insane. So you can kind of see how anyone would draw parallels with Scott Walker on this record, in the same way that any female artist who's a little bit eccentric is compared to Kate Bush. These kind of comparisons are inevitable. But on this track, there's just a really nice selection of sounds. The sax really makes this song for me. And the whole album, I mean, the saxophone on this record is sublime. It's just one of the most marvellous components on the record. I found it intriguing, the double-tracked vocals. Oh, at the centre of it all. It just is very hypnotic and very chilling, to say the least. But it's during the around 4.5 minute mark where it slowly progresses into a traditional David Bowie track. But even using the word traditional is a little bit misjudged when it comes to this album. There's nothing really here that casual listeners will find of interest. There's no or man. It's all pretty experimental in that respect. If you're looking for something which rocks or something to bop your head to, then you're going to be disappointed with this record. But as I was saying, around 4.5 minutes in, it starts to become a more conventional track. The lyrics have come under a lot of interest with people who've hypothesised that the lyrics are talking about Major Tom. But this was before Bowie announced his death. This was before Bowie died. And I think with this new information that's come to light, you can look at it about his declining health. Apparently, I read this on a Guardian article, Blackstar refers to a type of cancer lesion. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, then it would make sense considering the fact that he's talking about somebody came down and took its place. I'm a black star. The cancer is taking over him, which is a pretty clever way of showcasing the fact that you're terminal. But I mean, this track, with the swirling trip that it takes, it makes for an incredible introduction to the album. So then, the second track on here, 'Tis a Pity She Was a Whore, we have much more of a rock influence on this track. The booming snare of the drums, it reminded me a little bit of Saint Anger, a little bit. It's not exactly a negative aspect, it's just an observation. The backing vocals sound gorgeous, along with the synth in the background. But unlike Blackstar, the track remains pretty much the same throughout, with some progression in terms of the sax melody. Apart from that, the basic groove and everything, it remains the same throughout. But the lyrics appear to be talking about falling for someone who puts it about town, but perhaps I'm looking at that too black and white. I'm sure I am, but that's kind of what I got from the track. Then we have Lazarus, the darkest and most introspective, possibly, track on the whole album, and my favourite on the record, I think. Obviously, we all know the story of Lazarus. Or at least most do. Most people who are well informed about biblical thingamajiggies. For those who don't know, Lazarus was reborn from the dead. In this track, we kind of have Bowie essentially writing about his situation regarding his cancer and waiting for death. It's really grim. And waiting for death to take him so he can pass on. I kind of feel like there's a slight parallel with this and the track On GP by Death Grips. Tony Visconti stated that David Bowie claimed that Death Grips had an influence on this record, along with myriad artists such as Kendrick Lamar, Boards of Canada, and obviously Scott Walker. I mean, you know, the influence is undeniable. But I kind of feel like the imagery of waiting for death to come is very similar to the track on GP, where Stephen Burnett is talking about how death comes along and essentially says, come with me. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think that's deliberate. So then we move on to the track Sue, or In a Season of Crime. I was getting a little bit of a jungle influence with the breakbeat of the drums. It just sounds kind of similar to something that Goldie would have brought out in the kind kind of the mid-90s. But that guitar, it sounds a little like Swans and remind me of the track Oxygen off their last record, To Be Kind. But in terms of the lyrics, I'm a little lost with this track, but I can, again, hear the influence of Scott Walker, particularly with the lyrics. It feels left field. It reminds me of his last album, Bish Bosh, which was just a huge mindfuck, but a good one at that. Then after that we have Girl Loves Me, which feels a little more in step with his previous work musically, but considering his death was announced on Monday, the "where the fuck did Monday go" line, I know it's a coincidence, but that was very haunting listening to, given the circumstances. As with the previous track, the lyrics are pretty left field. You can see the influence from Death Grips, which, as I said previously, were a big influence on this album, along with Kendrick Lamar. And considering it's written in Nadsat and Polari, which apparently makes up the most of this, which is a language which was used in the London gay subculture during the 70s. The slang is something which clearly draws parallels with Kendrick, in the same way that he says boo-boo and po-po and such. And the track appears to be about taking drugs and refers to queens, drag queens, not the borough of New York. It just has general androgynous imagery, which, I mean, is par of the course with Bowie, really. And then with Dollar Days, this track's clearly about his last will and testament. The opening with the rustling paper makes this pretty obvious, but I believe this could be taken to mean what he's leaving his fans, and also his family as well, but also to an extent what he plans to do before he dies and what he wants to do before he dies. It's just devastating when he states how much he wants to go back to his birthplace, the English Evergreens, to see it one last time, but his sickness prevents this. The line, I'm dying too, shows this. There are many things he wants to do, but can't because mortality is in the way. Musically, this is the most straightforward track by a long mile. You've got acoustic guitar in there, and you've got a pretty conventional groove there as well, and rhythm. I could see a casual listener not having a big problem with this, and because there's nothing inherently experimental about the track, bar the drum machine at the end, which segues into the next track, I Can't Give Everything Away. I hear an influence from IDM with the drums and the keyboards, which makes sense given he expressed that Boards of Canada were an influence on the record. But along with this, you still have the sax, and you have a harmonica in there as well, which is a nice change of pace. It's nice to hear a new instrument for once. But the lyrics are among the most striking on the record. The line, I know something's very wrong, the pulse returns the prodigal son. It's interesting, as many were saying, there's a star shining in the sky, that's Bowie going back to his home planet. While, I get the sentiment, it seems that he's referring to that sort of thing in this track, the fact that he is an alien, which, I mean, he played an alien in The Man Who Fell to Earth, so I think that line kind of alludes to that, and the fact that he genuinely is from another planet and he's going on to greener pastures. I thought that was a really nice touch and really sweet. And the line with which the title is taken appears to express sadness that he can't continue making music. I can't give everything away. And that this album is his parting gift to the fans. He could very well be talking about his family as well, how he has so much love to give, but he's restricted because he's going to die soon. He can't give his time and energy and love because he's about to pass on. And this album is just something that he put all he could muster into, and with that, he's crafted his best album since Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. Everything about this record is just incredible. I love the lyrical content, the wonderful arrangements throughout the record, and I'd be surprised if this isn't looked back on in years to come as one of the best records of this decade. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I think it's one of Bowie's best records. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'm interested to hear what other people's opinions are regarding this record, so let me know. And I'll see you all sooner than I did before, because 6 months is ridiculous. It'll be in a few weeks, or a few days, or who knows. I don't know. Do you know? Because I don't.